Welcome back. This is our last panel of the event. It is Solidarity Over Silence, which is very near and dear to all of our hearts. And yeah, so just a little disclaimer before we start. We know that this topic can get heavy, and even when we were discussing it within us, we all have our own experiences with this and whatnot. So yeah, if you feel like it's too heavy and if you want to step out, that's fine. Whatever works for you. It is your space, and we all want to protect our own energies and spaces. So that's one. And then secondly, this panel is a little different than the other ones we had yesterday. So it is more of an open discussion for everyone. So instead of just listening to us, we want you guys to participate. So if you have something to say, please raise your hand or just grab the mics from one of us. So we do want to interact with everyone, and we do want to hear everyone's thoughts. We can't cover everything. We're going to try our best, but we are restricted with time. So just keep in mind that this topic is very wide, and there's so much to say about this, but there's only so much you can say within the 45 minutes you have. Do you want to start with why everyone's up here?
Yeah, so as Kevi mentioned, we want to keep it an open conversation. So don't be surprised if one of us is like, hey, audience, because again, this is not something, we're not experts on anything. Like, we're just here because we care about the topic and we utilize our platforms the way we have, but it's not perfect, and the point of it is to continue the conversations, is to continue educating and learning from each other. So the reason why we had this amazing lineup of panelists, all these beautiful ladies, is because each one of them inspired us a lot, the way that they are vocal and utilize the platforms that they do. Not because, they're like these highly fancy titles or have amazing they have amazing credibility, but I think but I think it's more, is it me?
Yeah.
What do I do? Show must go on. All right, well anyway. But at the end of the day, everyone has such amazing, I'm so sorry. At the end of the day, we are all doing what we can, doing the best we can, and okay. So with that said, let's start with introductions. Do you wanna? Anybody can start off.
Thank you. Hi everyone. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Hadiya. Thanks Kevi and Mai for having me today, and I'm excited to be on a panel with both of you. I am a writer, and I've spent the last decade working in advertising, so varied through copy and strategy, and I've really been focusing, for my own work, focusing on collective care and how we can move towards how taking care of each other is really we move forward in reimagining how we live and move as a society.
Hi everybody, pleasure to be here. My name is Yulkendy Valdez. I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant and facilitator. I don't really like that title. I'm just trying to change systems to work for the next generation. I did a very short corporate stint and realized I didn't feel like I belonged or felt seen in the current workplace, and that's why I'm here with you all trying to co-create solutions to change that.
Hi, Hadiya. Thanks, Kevi and I again. I worked across many spaces, animation, PR, I'm recently switching to marketing, and I'm a dancer, choreographer, creative human, all of that.
So I guess we're going to start by talking a little bit more about the title of the panel, Solidarity Over Silence. So I guess there is, when we talk about silence, right, there's so many meanings and definitions of that in this particular topic. So why we chose this and why it's important is because
Because I think we are all empowered to do something more, especially for our own communities, for each other's communities. We talk about allyship, but what does it actually mean? We talk about showing up and standing up for each other and not being a bystander. But there's just I think a lot of us feel overwhelmed or paralyzed into how can we help, how can we do more, both within ourselves, but outside of ourselves as well. So we wanted to talk about how can we everyone here look within themselves, towards themselves, and think about what is it that I can do to empower myself and stand in solidarity with the next person, and not just choose the silent route or not just choose, the bystander route. And so I think Hardeep brought it up recently, which was really great, and I'd love to hear you explain what exactly silence means and how that can either be harmful, but also in terms of what if someone's not as comfortable being vocal or being outspoken.
Yeah, I think silence is a really interesting nuance to talk about, especially now. And one of the things I brought up to Mai Kevi in the group was that there's a lot of activism that's happening on our feed all the time, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're constantly posting and talking about these topics. Often we're in the same kind of loopholes about these topics. And I think what I realized throughout the past year and a half specifically is, okay, I never thought of myself as someone that I thought I was an ally by default because I'm a woman of color. And I was like, well, I am an ally. I advocate for people, I advocate for black and brown folks, and that's important to me. And I think what I really had to do was take a step back and listen to myself. And silence became really key in that. And it became really key in listening to other people's experiences and my friends' experiences, whether it's the black community or the Asian community, which is also an interesting intersectionality because I'm English, so in England I'm technically Asian, but I know it's different with being Asian in America. And so for me, silence was, okay, if I'm not posting or if people aren't posting, it doesn't necessarily mean they're not advocating for the topic or they're not working on things. So I think we've really had to pull back and allow everyone's individual experience to come through, and also just kind of believe and trust and hope that the conversations you're having with yourself and the conversations you're having with your community are also helping drive change and push for action.
Yeah, so with that said, what does allyship really mean to you guys? I know that we all have certain definitions and there's so many different levels and layers, but how would you define allyship?
Yeah, what we often don't talk about is that there's different levels of allyship. I mean, we're obviously having this event today. Now you see us because the first level is we just want to be seen, right? But we're not even hitting that first level because right now we're still not trying to acknowledge our history, our racist history, and the way that our systems have been built. We want to operate in this colorblind society. But we know that's not the truth. And what I want to get to, hopefully past 2020, is to hold each other accountable to more advanced levels of leadership, where we're actually sponsoring, championing each other, helping each other get paid, helping each other get the introduction to social capital we need, buying local, supporting our communities, intermixing our networks and making sure we're always meeting different people. But right now, we're still at that first level. So what I would love to brainstorm with you all is how do we get to that next level, which we know that's when change is going to happen.
Yeah, and I was going to say that being an ally also means being open, being accepting, being understanding of the fact that somebody is not the same person as you. And that's just from sitting next to somebody, my friends, whatever, we're all different. So that already just lays a level of just be there, even though if you don't get it, you don't understand it. Uncomfortability is huge in every step of the way. So I think being an ally is allowing yourself to be open and accept something different. Even if you don't like it, just hear it, understand it, pass the news, share the information, share all of it.
that as well. I think it's about creating space for everybody's experience. And I think when you can really sit back and listen, I've like really worked hard on being a better listener like in the last year and a half, but just being able to give someone the space and time to share why something has affected them, and kind of being able to shift your perspective or see their perspective based on that is super important as well.
Yeah, but raise your hands here. Do we like the word allyship? Who likes it? Do we hate it? Raise your hands if we hate it. Is it starting to lose its meaning?
It is.
I love it.
It's confusing.
Yeah, it's a really confusing word. Like, how many people here last year we passed around this word ally? Like, do you care about Black Lives Matter? Are you here for Stop Asian Hate? I mean, you will like questioned yourself and was like, what does this really mean?
Yeah, it's like the second you ask her, like, are you an ally? And then you're like accusing them of possibly not have done anything. And it's like, well, you just, it's not like
It
it's
defeats
different.
the purpose.
Yeah, or people who are claiming that I am an ally, but not truly understanding what the word really means, and just posting like, hey, I am an ally because I have black and brown friends. But what does that truly mean?
Yeah, actually, I saw some hands out here, so I'd love to just like kind of pass it forth. Is that Grace? Would you like to share what it is about the term ally that really bothers you?
Sure. So I don't know if you guys remember this video that, oh my god, I'm sorry, thank you so much. Wow, that's so nice. I don't know if you guys remember that video that was going around a few months ago, and I feel like the heat of the news cycle where you were just seeing like a lot of, in particular, like East Asian folks being bullied in your video feed. There's this one video where a younger Asian woman is on the subway and someone is actively verbally harassing her, saying all sorts of things to her. And then the person who's saying those things to her, there's a person next to them who is not doing anything. Like that person is, this awful person's friend. And at one point you see this woman say, no, I'm sorry, like I'm an ally. And she's doing nothing, literally nothing. Like, I think that moment for me encapsulates what I hate so much about the word, because you could just say it. And I actually think too, like, I think people forget that sometimes words start to lose their meaning for that reason. You could say you're an ally, but it might not actually show up for anyone, especially when someone else needs it. And so, like, if you're curious about how the video concludes, like, the girl who's recording the screen is like, get off the train, get off the train. I don't care if you're not, like, I don't care if you're an ally. I don't care who you are. Your friend is messing me up, and so you need to leave. And then thankfully, they go. But I think, yeah, that moment really, really crystallizes everything that I think is wrong with that word. That's it.
Yeah. No, that's great.
I agree with that too, because ally was put into the word space over a year ago. So now it's like, are you still an ally because you helped that one time back in the day when everybody posted the black squares, or are you a continuous supporter of other issues that are not your own and other cultural moments that are not your own? So, and stepping up for people, because we talked about that. Just like, is something, it's what does the MTA say? If you see something, say something. It's not hard. Say something.
And it's interesting because there's such a fine line as well. You can have that blanket term, I'm an ally, but where does the accountability come in, And are you holding yourself accountable, or are you so concerned with holding other people accountable? And like, where can we find that balance? Do I see a hand up as well? Yes. Do you have one? We're just gonna run back and forth. Yeah. I'll go next. Yeah.
I think it's interesting to bring up the idea of like the uncomfortableness with it, where like now that ally has become such a thing, we get uncomfortable with like, oh, are you an ally? Am I an ally? And like identifying with that. And so I think that there's been this sort of like collective attachment to like, well, I'm an ally. Of course I'm an ally because I'm not a bad person. I must be an ally. And then it's like taking that next step to like really level up the uncomfortableness, facing a situation where actually stepping out of your comfort zone, not just within yourself, like, oh, I'm out, but standing up for somebody or getting super uncomfortable and being able to like really step into that is like where we're having this schism. It's not just becoming comfortable with it within yourself, but like getting outside of yourself.
I agree with you. I think it's part of human nature. Like, I think semiotics is really important here, and language is so important. I mean, I didn't know, like, I didn't have a term for the microaggressions I faced in the last decade of my career until someone started using the phrase microaggressions, and then you have something, you have a word that attaches to the meaning of what we're all feeling, and so it's very easy to just label something without really taking a look, and I think you're so right, it's about holding ourselves accountable first, and if you can do that, if you can start here, then by default you like pass that to your community and to your circle, and so I think with social trends and just the things that we're all engulfed in, it's very easy for words to just lose like what they're actually about and the action that comes with that.
Yeah, I like that you brought up microaggressions because I think silence can actually be really loud. Silence look like those microaggressions we face on a daily basis, but we're expected, oh, it's a joke. Just go on with your day. You know, those things don't mean anything. We're just joking about it. Is it really a joke? To what extent, you know, are we supposed to just expect that our own experiences are going to be negated? And that's the level of allyship we're still fighting for. And allyship is not perfect. It is about being uncomfortable. It is about being vulnerable and humble. But the reality is, it sounds like the easiest thing to do, but we're just so obsessed with getting everything right that we can't get past that first basis of discomfort.
You know, the past couple of months we've seen the increase in the attacks on the Asian population. And normally things happen and we see it, but it doesn't impact us as it should because we say we cannot relate. And it's so strange that now that we have Kevi in our lives, we think about what happens if Kevi's on the war and somebody attacks her. And sometimes if it's not someone in our lives, we kind of, it's not impactful as it should be. And that's what I think that's what we're thinking about.
Yeah, no, totally. It's like silence is a response. Words can be a weapon. It's tone, it's action, it's in a message, it's verbally sent to you, and then it becomes a physical thing. And then you're like, am I silent because I'm self-care, or am I silent because I literally don't know what I'm talking about and I just don't know what to say? So I feel like that goes, because I took some time, 3 months, I walked around my apartment and barely said words, and I loved it. I would go many hours, and then I would think, like, oh, I should probably talk to a friend. But if I'm not safe in myself, it's also hard to be safe for somebody else. So I feel like silence also takes the flip of self-care. But also, you do need to eventually show that you care because you worked on yourself enough to care for somebody else's issues.
Yeah, and I think back to your point too, right? It's now we're approaching like, how do we build empathy? And I think at the basis of it, how can we build that empathetic self within us, so that we can extend, you know, the relatability, being able to see somebody else that we don't know or we don't understand the experience. And back to, I don't know her name, but just you know, having those uncomfortable conversations, but even within your circles. And I think even the way we're discussing this now, like, we're not going to have this perfect. I'm going to ask a question that I might be a little afraid to ask because I'm like, am I getting the language wrong? You know, I don't want to come off insensitive. I don't want to feel like I'm, you know, not really understanding the gravity or the volatility of the situation. But even kind of practicing that uncomfortability within our circles, within our communities, having the conversations that we do, kind of start seeding that empathy, that sense of like compassion, so that we can, you know, expand our circles and meet somebody that's like, now I, you know, that experience of what's happening in that community is because now I know somebody or empathize with that person now.
Yeah, and it's also kind of be more vocal, right? And like explaining or expressing what we need, which for me personally, it's really hard. I don't want to be like, oh, me, or like help me, or like, it's really hard to express what you need from the next person, or how can that person be a better ally to you, or how can that person help you process this entire thing. So even in that, I've learned to really break that down for me, and how do I communicate my needs to my circle or my community. And I would love to hear what you guys think about that, and how do you guys express what you need without feeling like, well, am I being selfish here? Am I not looking out for other people because I actually need stuff too, which can be a really uncomfortable space for us too, right?
I think a good, simple response is, because obviously this is complicated, but on the simple side, it's thank you. Let's say somebody did reach out to you. Thank you. I don't have much to give you right now, but when I'm ready, I will come back to you and let you know what I could need in this situation. Because I have a group of 5 white girls that are my best friends from high school, and during BLM, I felt like they didn't talk to me at all. It was like a weird moment where they just remembered I was their black friend, and like, they didn't know what else to say to me. And I remember just being so upset, but I also didn't want them to check on me, but I also like needed them to step out of their comfort zone and just ask me how I'm feeling about anything that's going on, because it's very obvious. And they didn't, and I found myself attacking them because I was so angry that they didn't even take the time from a 10-year friendship to check on their friend that is obviously stuck in a situation that I will never be able to change myself and get out of it. So I did reach out to them. I got really upset. They kind of turned it back. I'm like, well, we're obviously your friends. One person was like, oh, I just don't even know where to look. I don't understand. And then I had to find myself, why did I even reach out to them? To ask for nothing, but to make them feel like they needed to stand up and do something else. Because I had friends in cities where there were the shootings. I'm just like, what are you doing? And it's that moment of I had to understand with myself, why do I need them to speak up? And I think that becomes a thing of like, why am I so angry at this person for not saying more things? But I could just do that for myself and for other people. But also it takes that time to just educate yourself. What do you need? How do you help the next person? And then expressing it that way.
I mean, to Kevi's point, I personally really struggle with saying what I need to myself. Like, I can ask for it. Like, I think just being like coming from an Indian family where you just, and most of us here, like, we're from like very different cultural backgrounds, but like, we're raised like as a child of immigrants, you don't ask what you need. It's not about you. It's about your parents, it's about who comes before, and it's about the family, it's about getting everyone plugged in and ready to go and live their lives. But when it comes to you, it's very difficult to be like, this is what I need, and like, I'm in therapy for it. And you know, I work on it weekly, and it's a process, and so it's very difficult to just sit there and be like, it's easy for me to know or like want to reach out, but it's hard to do so. And I think part of that is just being really kind to yourself, and don't push yourself too hard, and like take it one step at a time, and just remind yourself that it's a part of the process, and we're breaking a lot of generational trauma. And you know, like I could sit there and ask my parents, like, what do you need? Blue in the face? They could never tell me. And so just reminding yourself of where you come from and how far that journey has been, and it's not natural to us. So, yeah.
I've been using the word grace this year, just like give yourself grace. It's okay.
And the flip side for me, I did have some white friends text me. I honestly did not know how to feel, but I watch a lot of TV, and now a lot of the shows that are coming back are trying to, they either incorporate COVID, or they also try to integrate some Black Lives Matter, and when George Floyd was murdered. And I like this episode, this particular show, because it was a black person, he had his white friend call him, it's like, what can I do for you? And then he said, you know, this protest is not for me. Like, you don't need to do anything for me. And I love that, because I think, again, going back to the different levels of allyship, first level is I see you, second level, I'm with you. But a lot of people are like, what can I do for you? Does that mean you don't care about what's going on? you are not part of the solution. So I think we need to get to a point where, again, we understand that. Tradition. Get to a point where we think.
I think that's Ashida's music on the board. They were saying.
That was validation. Though, I guess. That get to the point where we understand, hey, more justice, more equity for everybody is better for everybody. A real ally understands that I'm going to be part of the solution because it's also a better world for me and for my kids, but I don't think we're there yet. And I wonder, anyone, what have you found that you need? Anyone want to share a particular story?
Or if you struggle with the same things that we do.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I am interested in everyone sharing any personal anecdotes behind the thought process of reconciling self-love and being an ally. I struggle with this personally. Whenever it comes up for me, I am able to quickly realize this person could say something in a better way. And I do it too, which is probably why I can equally identify. But then I will ask myself, should I say something? But if I say something, like what's next? Like how do I handle it? And I think I'm supposed to say something, but again, I can't reconcile the self-love and protecting my peace and dealing with this person. So I'm just interested if we could be more candid about when this happens to you, what is your thought process? And how do you get to that point where if you do have to put self-love to the side, like how do you execute it? Or even just the thought process.
I actually love that question just because I also struggle with that as well. It's like, as Hardeep mentioned, like we come from cultures that we're so used to just giving ourselves to trying to always like think about somebody else ahead of ourselves and to always care about what their needs are. And all of a sudden we're like, okay, what are your needs? And it's like, I don't know, whatever you want, you know? And it's, and I don't know, I think that's hard too, being that especially with everyone here, you know, where have you had to find that balance of like, I'm being vocal because this represents what I stand for and what I care for, but also I'm not, you know, an open resource for you, like anybody to just slide my DMs or text me every other day asking me all these questions. It's like, but I'm, you know, there's Google for that. And so, you know, how do you guys feel about that? Like, how have you tried to find that balance, especially what Ashley said? It's like, where do you find that reconciliation of, I'm not trying to give more of myself, but I'm trying to represent more of myself, you know?
It's really hard, I think, especially in workspaces, right? Like, you have to act a certain way, you have to keep it composed, and, you know, if your boss says something and you're just like, okay, let me take a second here. Do I say something or do I not? I don't want to be too aggressive, even the word aggressive, right? Like, you don't want to, it's such, even the word aggressive to me is such a weird word. Like, is it negative? Like, is being aggressive, setting up for yourself negative? But for me, I definitely I still struggle with it, but I try my absolute best to say something. And I do need to take a second. I need to take a second and really think about why this person is saying it. And that's what I do. That's a tool for myself, because I don't want to assume. I hate assumptions. I don't want to jump into conclusions. So let me ask them a follow-up question. Let me get to the point of why they said an ignorant statement. Or is it ignorance, or is it a racist comment? Is it insensitive, or are they just being dismissive? You know, I want to make sure that I'm not just attacking, and I'm also listening in order for me then to educate that person better.
I think that's something that we all are scared to do, is simply admit that we don't know something. So I think the moment of literally talking to somebody that's being ignorant, you're just like, I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand you. Can you repeat that? Because I feel like I want to say something, but I'm not sure if I'm just crossing the line. Like, it's okay to be open and play dumb, especially in your immediate community, like, of immediate friends. Like, those are the best people to ask those stupid questions to. And see, like, am I crazy? Am I off? Like, let me know. And then on the flip side of the, like, self-care and all of that, I think telling, it's a little tricky because I almost don't want you to ask me what I need. I just want you to offer something because you do know me in a different space. Whether something else is happening, it's almost like, hey, I'm gonna come by and like play some music, or I'm gonna come by and do this with you, rather than like, what do you need? And then that forces me to have to think about all these things and like, do I need that? Do I need, I don't wanna bother them too much, but really the friend or the person on the other side should simply be like, do you want to get drinks? I feel like we need a moment to just like clear our head, rather than being like, what can I do for you? I'll show up whenever. And it's like, shoot, when do I need them to show up? I don't know. I need that pressure off of me and just have a moment to clear that space.
To Ashley's point, I think you have to, when you're thinking about compromising or reconciling with your self-love, you have to think about what the goal of saying something really is. Like, are you trying to, if it's someone that you know isn't going to rationalize with you, and it isn't going to change their minds, or it's going to go over their head, is it worth you doing that? Like, I'm like, you know, there's a woman at work who lives in Denver, Colorado. She's a white woman, and she chats me at work all the time. She's like, yo, what's up? What's good in your hood? And I'm like, every time, I'm like, say something. And I really had to think about it, and I'm like, okay, if I call her out on this, after spending more time with her, working with her, it's very clear to me if I called her out on it, she's gonna stop doing it. And she's gonna take a step back and really realize like, yo, I need to just chill the fuck out. But if it's someone that isn't gonna get it, like I think you have to use your judgment to really be like, is it worth me compromising myself and putting myself out there when this isn't really gonna like make a difference? So I think just what's the point in, what is the end goal in standing and speaking out, and is this the right moment? Like I always have to think about that.
I've had Mike for so long, and the manufacturing thing. I love the word grace, because I think it does cover a multitude of sins. And I think also that when you have relationships with people, the relationship should determine what you need or you don't need. During this whole Black Lives Matter, honestly, I was minimally involved. I was offended, just like I was offended watching, Asian people being attacked. But I remember this one thing. I have a variety of friends. I have biracial children. And I remember this one thing in the height of it last year, a Caucasian friend of mine whom I had a relationship with, a deep relationship with, called me and said, my sister, I heard for you, and the text went on. And it spoke volumes into me because I had a relationship with her. So when it comes to allyship and all this other stuff, to me, I could brush off who I don't have relationships with. I could be okay with that because I will not expend the energy to, correct somebody that don't want to be corrected. But if I'm in a relationship with you and you truly want to learn from me and vice versa, because this is a graceful relationship, I have no problems with that. I'm really uncomfortable trying to correct the world. My children are my biggest teachers because they enter into those places, and when I have the Sunday dinner sit-down thing, I learn volumes from them. But am I, as an immigrant child from the 70s, that when I came here at 10, I was busted from the hood into a white neighborhood, and as I stand here now as a 60-year-old woman, I'm telling you they have much more courage than I do. And will I be entering those places? Probably not. But I've learned things like having difficult conversations. My son said it's important. I'll let him run with that. And my daughter will talk to me about microaggressions because a boss comes to tell her about hair texture and all this thing. And I never knew any of this, what this meant in the grand scheme of things. And I'm so much farther along and better along because my immediate circle, where I go to church, the people I associate with, you know, whom I choose to have a relationship and comfort with, is diverse. That to me is progressive, and that's what I can do now as a 60-year-old. Is it going to stay that place? Probably not. And I see that, you know, who wants to run with it, that I produced, is running with it. But I just feel like we're going to have to figure out our place and talk about the energy we want to expend. And I don't have to jump in on everything because whom I've associated with has brushed off of my life and made me a different person. When I wanted to come to this conference, I needed the thought of who can I invite of my Asian friends. And I was disappointed I didn't have a lot of Asian friends. That upset me. And that's what you have to look at. You know, I got upset with a man, the black guy, who was abused that 60-some-odd-year-old woman and told her to go back where she came from, and I thought, how ridiculous is that? You know, and these are the things I think that's what we have to be looking at, you know. Community, and we have a relationship, and whether or not we're going to enter in for allyship.
I think to add to that, also I think Rita has something to say. But yeah, starting in your own circle and community, and that made me think about how much energy was I spending on my individual people in my circle versus trying to help everyone. You know, and I only have so much energy to give, and sometimes because I'm trying to be a good ally or I'm trying to do my best, I'm spending so much less of my energy trying to fix everything versus actually talking to my individual friends and being like, hey, let's talk, let's grab coffee, let's get drinks. Because I'm spreading myself thin. So it is true. It's so hard finding that balance between, I guess, our generation trying to do the work and trying to step out, and but also taking care of ourselves and also taking care of our family and friends and community. So yeah, I think we're trying our best, but it's definitely not perfect yet. It's definitely not perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of circling back to something you mentioned before about self-care. As a woman of color in a lot of white spaces, because I do work in fashion and beauty, and most of the time I am the token black girl, or if I'm the black girl, there's an Asian woman in the room, and we kind of have like an unspoken, like, we all understand like what's happening. But I feel like a form of self-care for me now, especially in light of BLM and things like that, and the protests are taking my power back. I don't feel that I should have to constantly explain things to you. If you're coming to me asking questions, do your research. It's not on me as a woman of color to help dissect and help you figure it out. I'm living this life already, so I shouldn't have to, it's almost damaging to me having to repeat the same things over and over. It is also a form of trauma. So I don't feel that I need to do that. So that's why I take a drawback in that sense. But also when it comes to hair, like my hair is naturally curly in a lot of those spaces, and I realize in a generational thing because my mom also works in fashion, but she was in fashion during like the 70s and 80s where it was like you kind of had to whitewash yourself. So like your hair had to be straight, you had to talk a certain way, you couldn't wear certain things. And because she has a mentality, I realized I was like, F that. Like, I'm going to work with my hair curly. I don't really care what anybody says. You touch my hair, we fight. And like, you have to kind of stand up for yourself and kind of say, like, it doesn't really matter what you think of me because this is who I am. So you get to show up as yourself every single day, but I have to tone down who I am to fit in these spaces. And I think the biggest thing is, as people of color, we kind of have to just walk in the room as ourselves. And if you don't like that about me, that's a you problem, not a me problem. And I feel like if we take that power back, that's kind of boosting our confidence. That's kind of showing up as ourselves, and that is a form of self-care because I need to be who I am. I shouldn't have to change who I am to fit in those spaces. The spaces need to adjust to me. And that's just kind of what it needs to be going forward. And I think as a people, we all kind of do that, especially with like the Crown Act and things like that, just to take it back. You kind of just have to go from there.
And that's literally like abolishing code switching. Don't code switch. Be yourself every day. They'll figure it out.
Actually, I think the reason why one of our like key themes for this event as well is called Reformation, right? Like we're reclaiming our identities. I think, especially for me as Asian women, we're so boxed in a certain way, in a certain role, in a way we have to look or behave or anything, and I think we all struggle with that. And it's to Lita's point, like how are we reclaiming our identities, not just because I'm a woman of color, but because I'm somebody specific to who I am and not like defined by what I look like or what, people's stereotypes about me or perspectives about me are. And I think our generation going forward is in a unique place where we are reclaiming what those narratives are, and it's not monolithic. It's not, like what you're reading in textbooks. It's really learning within ourselves, like what does this history mean to me in the context of my life, and not because, oh, I want people to read about, my Vietnamese American heritage. It's like, well, yeah, but I'm also learning about my own, right? And so what I'm teaching you is not because I want you to, I'm not some textbook or Google or whatever, and it's like, okay, you need to learn it the way, everyone else is learning it. It's like, well, no, I'm teaching you based on how I'm also learning it at the same time. And I think, thank you so much for bringing that up. It's like, yeah, we're all challenging ourselves to bring that power back and reclaiming, who we are as individuals. I don't know. It's a lot. I feel like we can go on forever. That's why we keep saying that, right? So, do you want to go? No, you don't.
We kind of want to end it with a positive note and how can we do better and how we can feel better and just all, from to sum up what we said, how allyship is such a weird word, and how we're trying to change that word in a positive way. We gave everyone the index cards. Do everybody have them? Or if you don't have one, maybe raise your hand and the volunteer can give you one. Do we have volunteers to give them out?
Okay, so as you're giving out index cards, so this is actually a great idea from our panelists as we have this conversation, this very candid conversation prior to the event. So the point of this is for all of us to walk away learning something different, something new, and how we can take action. So on one side of the index card, write what your need is from an ally. What do you hope to get from an ally, from the next person, so that you feel seen? And on the flip side is writing about how you can be a better ally. And it's completely anonymous. We're not going to share it. I feel like we're still figuring out how we want to share this out, but I think at the end of the day, this is for you and what you want to walk away and take away from this experience.
Did you have a question?
In the meantime, I guess you guys can answer this question. So first, what do we need? What do you guys personally need in general from people in your circle or your allies? And then on the flip side, how can you be a better ally to your peers?
Yeah, I love the conversation around community and relationships and really shaping up our own networks, and that's really the ultimate level of allyship, and research says so. So essentially, there's a research out of a think tank in New York City that says those who have sponsors, personal champions, advocates in their life, if I know I have somebody that really believes in me, sees me, I'm most likely to perceive less bias. I'm most likely to feel like I belong, and it reduces it by 90%. Close to that is having a mentor, someone who gives you the ropes. And yes, this applies mostly to the workplace scenario, but also in life as we talk about our close friendships and allies. So what I need more sponsorship, more people saying my name in rooms that are not part of and advocating for my work. And that's what I want for more of you in this room and beyond. We need to advocate for each other's successes so we can all collectively thrive. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. Like, yeah, we all love a pat on the back, and yeah, I see this in the news, but at the end of the day, what are we doing with our wallet? What are we doing with verbally in rooms that those peoples are not present?
I definitely agree with the community thing. I need more intentional connections. Like, I can meet you here in this space today, you add me on Instagram, you like my story, whatever, but we don't ever meet again. I like to be intentional with people that I come across in spaces. So that's one thing. And then to be a better ally, I feel like I'm a talkative person, so I think for me to be a better ally is to simply listen, take in, and then just let them talk to me about what they, not even what they need, but their experience. The best you can do is just let somebody's experience be theirs, don't add yours in. It's their story, it's their happening, and that's what I think I can do.
I love that. Plus one to both of these. If I was dreaming really big, I'd want everyone to just look into like what England did with colonization and JK, like check back the history books and realize how messed up this world is. But the things that we can do now, I think I really need more difficult conversations on both ends and real dialogue. It's evidence to me that people want to change and they want to challenge their perceptions. And in terms of what I'd like to give or like how I'd approach being a better ally is just feeling less guilty about having difficult conversations and about having and speaking up and trying to eradicate the fear that comes into these conversations and you know, eventually removing the box that we will put ourselves in. And so I think again, like stepping into your power and reclaiming your power in your space is super important.
Love that. I think that's one of the reasons why Mai and I actually did this event. We were struggling with what can we do more. We were having these conversations so much in our Serve Girls, or I'll just pick up the phone and call Mai with so much frustration about what's going on in the news and my individual conversations, and we're like, okay, like how can we channel this into something positive? Because we, especially for me, I hate leaving the conversation just feeling frustrated. I'm like, I just don't know what to do. I'm just gonna watch Netflix and go to bed because that's gonna make me feel better. So I think, at least for me personally, this is such a great, powerful tool. This event is I feel very happy with the outcome and just the conversations I've had so far in the past 2 days with everyone here. So yeah, I think for me, just continuing this, like I don't want this to just be a one-time thing. That's why we're trying to cultivate conversations with everyone and leaving with new connections, just like what you said. Hopefully everyone met someone new here today and we can build this community and keep on referring each other to jobs and people in community, because yeah, it really starts with us and actually building that trust, even with people that you don't know or people outside of your circle.
Yeah, plus one of that. But yeah, I think as we're here talking about solidarity, it's walking into a room and thinking about people that you have in your life, the connections you have, and how can I amplify them as well? How can I bring them in the room with me so that we're both winning out here, you know? And it's not just a competition of like, oh, I'm trying to better myself because I'm representing, you know, my culture and my identity. It's like, well, we're back at like reclamation, right? Like we all have our experiences and we're validating each other's experiences by bringing each other into the room together. So let's close it off.
Well, do you guys have any questions or any last comments that you want to share at all?
Thoughts, feelings?
This was very good.
Yeah.
So glad.
And we're going to collect all those cards, so hopefully we're going to do something really special with it, so just stay tuned.
We might make a Zoom.
Do you guys have any last comments or thoughts?
Just thank you to everyone for being open that like you don't know what you don't know, and we're learning as we go, and we're all trying to figure this out together. And I think it's very easy to feel like, how can I make a difference and change everything that's come, the thousands of years that have come before us? But I think it's more so like, how can we all do that together? And we're doing it now in this room, and I think everyone will leave feeling like they learned something, and so that's change.
Alright, well, thank you guys for listening in. Yeah, so, after this, we have vendors, API-owned businesses on the roof, so please check them out. And then we're gonna have a little sunset dance party. Oh, and workshop.
We also have 3 amazing workshops. So as we're, practicing, continuing the conversations, educating ourselves, and learning from somebody different, we have soul care with Lauren up in the room in the client lounge. We have an intake expel visioning workshop over here with Khan, and then coffee tasting, because to keep you going, to join our party at the end of the night. Coffee tasting with little skips in the courtyard.
Yeah, and the vendors are already starting, so feel free to explore the venue, go to your workshops, head to the roof. But yeah, enjoy the